I'm Jenni Carlson.
I'm Barry Tramel. Welcome to the Jenni and Berry Show. Kentucky basketball coach John Calipari is headed to Arkansas, and now UK, the ultimate blue blood, needs a new coach, just as OU is headed to the Southeastern Conference.
What does all this mean for college basketball? For the SEC? For the Sooners? We'll talk about all that and much more. But first, we want to ask you to subscribe to our show. Just hit that subscribe button, and it might not seem like a big deal for you, but it will help us, and that will help you. So subscribe today. We also want to say thanks to these sponsors for supporting the Jenni and Berry Show. MidFirst Bank, Next Gen Roofing, the Oklahoma Ford Dealers Association. Drive into your best in Oklahoma Ford dealers today for the best deals on Ford's full lineup of trucks and SUVs. Ford is the best in Oklahoma. All right, Barry, so college basketball, we had a national championship game on Monday, but the bigger surprise was Sunday when news came out that John Calipari was leaving Kentucky for Arkansas. What is the word that hits your emotion? Was it shocked? Was it surprised? Was it apathetic? I don't know. What was it for you?
I think it makes sense. We probably should have seen it coming. You know, when I heard that Eric Musselman was headed to Southern Cal, I immediately said, Hogs are going to hire Chris Beard away from Ole Miss for a couple of reasons. They want to win. Chris Beard's a winner. He's got a lot of baggage with the domestic violence past, but Arkansas will look past that and hire Chris Beard. But I should have looked even further inside the SEC. The SEC is it's sort of a world that's incestuous. They hire each other's coaches all the time, each other's athletic directors all the time. I thought the Hogs would look to Oxford. Instead, they looked to Lexington, where John Calipari was not a popular figure anymore. Kentucky would have fired Calipari a few weeks ago if it wasn't for that $33 million buyout. He got a parachute in Fayetteville. He took it.
Yeah. It is. I don't know if I was shocked, but I definitely was not expecting Calipari to leave for Arkansas. Now, if the money's good, it doesn't matter what the name on the school says. So to me, that I guess is all taken care of. So it makes sense in that regard. But still, when you leave a blue blood basketball program, and we know that it's a limited list when it comes to college basketball, it's Duke, it's Kentucky, it's Kansas. There's maybe a few that have been good, but maybe not anymore. I mean, Indiana probably fits that list. They were good. They've struggled in recent years. But Arkansas, they've had success there, but you definitely don't put them in the same sentence as some of those other blue bloods. So that to me felt a little weird. I thought Calipari might try to figure out how to get out of Lexington because of some of what you talked about, Barry, early NCAA tournament exits, just not having the talent. I mean, they're still cranking out NBA players. That Kentucky seems to have no shortage of future NBA stars, but they can't win in the NCAA tournament. It's completely backwards. So the thought that Calipari would leave, not surprised by that. The Arkansas part of it, though, surprised me a little bit. I will say that the location was maybe not what I was doing. I thought maybe NBA. I thought maybe he would go, I don't know if it would be necessarily as a head coach, but some sort of intermediate step before he found another college head coaching job. But the Arkansas part, I guess, surprised me a little bit. Doesn't sound like it surprised you at all.
Not really. You know, the Razorbacks you're right, they're not a blue blood, but they do have a really interesting tradition. Eddie Sutton produced a wonderful program there. Nolan Richardson follows it up with a national championship and 3 Final Fours. In recent years, Eric Musselman has done really well at Arkansas. I think 2 straight Sweet 16s or maybe 2 straight Elite 8s. I can't remember, but
better in the tournament than Kentucky in recent years.
That's right. It's a place you can win. And it's a place that has a great fan following. It fell off some, but it's become back in recent years, and Walton Arena really gets going. So I think it's a place you can go and win. More than ever, you don't have to be a blue blood to win in college basketball. We've seen that in the last 2 years. with just the people that make the Final Four alongside Connecticut, which, by the way, is not a blue blood either. It's just a runaway power, but it's not a historical citadel of NCAA basketball. They just happen to win more than anybody else. So I think Arkansas is a place that Calipari can win, or anybody can win.
Yeah.
And I think he saw it as a good landing spot. So I think, it's interesting. It's a sort of a reversal of history, right? I mean, 1985, Eddie Sutton leaves Arkansas to go to Kentucky.
Yeah.
Says, I'll crawl to Lexington for this job. Well, I don't know if Calipari would have crawled back to Fayetteville, but I think he was glad to get this job after what he seemed to be on the horizon in Lexington.
It's interesting with Kentucky sort of, I don't know if slide is the right word. I'm not sure exactly how to characterize what's happened to them here in recent years with their NCAA tournament struggles, but obviously still one of those teams that people look at as one of the big brands in college basketball. With Calipari leaving, a guy that we know has had success at Kentucky, does it lessen Kentucky? Does it change the balance of power in college basketball? What does this move do for the overall landscape of college basketball?
Well, I don't know that it changes that much. Of course, we got to wait and see who lands at Kentucky. I don't think it's going to be Danny Hurley. So I think the ramifications aren't necessarily cataclysmic. But Kentucky's going to end up with a big name, a good coach, no doubt about that. So I don't know if Calipari can supersede what Eric Musselman has done at Arkansas in the last 5 years. Maybe he can, but I don't know.
That's Final Four, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's how he'd have to do it. So I don't know if it even changes that much. It's just interesting. It also shows me that there's another program that has been committed to big-time basketball, but is even more so right now when you talk about the Razorbacks. Calipari didn't go to Fayetteville without a lot of NIL promises and lots of money going to be spent not only on his contract but on players. So I think that it's a sign that some schools are going more all in than ever on college basketball.
Yeah, and I think the landscape of college basketball has been so impacted by the portal. I'm with you. I don't necessarily know if it makes Arkansas more of a player and Kentucky less, or vice versa. I mean, depending on your opinion of Calipari, maybe you think Kentucky got better with his departure. So, I mean, I think it, it may have a little bit of an impact, but it's not as big as it would have been, say 5 years ago even. I don't think it's as dramatic because we really don't know yet, like who's going to be good next year, because these teams change all the time. I mean, I was at a thing at my church on Monday night as the NCAA tournament game was getting ready to start, and we started to talk about, just how the rosters are changing. We knew at Oklahoma State with Mike Boynton's firing it would, but now at OU, I mean, they've got guys coming and going every year. It's a new team. So the idea that, Kentucky would be diminished or Arkansas would be built up, we don't know. We really don't know what's going to happen with the power structure of college basketball. Now, I think it is interesting what this might mean for the SEC, which OU is about ready to walk in, again, with a largely new roster, it looks like, in men's basketball. So does the dynamic of the SEC change maybe even more than the dynamic of college basketball? I think it might actually have a bigger, impact, maybe not the right word, but I think the dynamic might be more striking in the SEC than it is in the whole of college basketball.
Yeah, I think you're right. And when you look at that, when the Sooners go to the SEC, they knew what they were signing up for football, right? I mean, that's what they wanted. They wanted the increased competition. They wanted the better home schedules. They wanted the allure and the luster of the SEC. But on the other hand, in basketball, they were thinking, the SEC's great basketball, lots of tradition, all that stuff. But the Big 12 become so good as well that when you went to the SEC, you thought maybe you catch a little bit of relief in basketball. Right. Whatever you're gaining in competition in football, maybe it comes back a little bit on the basketball side. I think this is a slap across the face, some cold water on that thought. And not necessarily that the competitions in the SEC is going to be better or more difficult, but just the idea that hey, we got to get up to speed on NIL because clearly Arkansas is going to spend money. Clearly Kentucky always spends money. The SEC, back when paying players was illegal, the SEC's reputation was that they did it anyway. I don't claim to know how much of that's true, but this idea that, the Sooners might get a relief in basketball, no, not going to happen.
Yeah.
They're going to have to spend big money for Porter Moser or whoever follows him to compete in the SEC. And, the closest SEC school to you now as, the king of high profile recruiting, coaching in Arkansas.
Yeah.
And then you got the Kentuckys and the Auburns and Alabamas and whoever else, long list of teams you want to list. So tough sledding for SEC basketball. Sooners getting no break when they get to the hardwood.
Yeah, I don't think this is good for OU basketball. I think if it's is this good or is this bad? I don't think it's good for OU basketball at all because like you said, I think it does increase the NIL dollars that you have to compete. And, I don't know if Arkansas and OU have or will go up against each other for players. I think it's probably safe to say that they're both looking at players in the state of Texas. A lot of really good players down there that they're probably both going to be looking at. So can you compete? We know that high school recruiting, not necessarily as predominant in college basketball as it used to be. Calipari seems to still be getting a lot of the good freshmen. He did to Kentucky. Now, can he replicate that at Arkansas? I don't know. My assumption is probably. I mean, he may not get exactly the same guys, but I think he's still going to get pretty good players to Arkansas. So now it feels like OU is going to have to spend on basketball in a way that, were they going to have to before? Yes, but it feels like it's just been ratcheted up or reinforced, maybe both of those things with this move of Calipari's to Arkansas, because not to say that OU doesn't want to spend money on basketball, but Barry, come on, let's be honest. It doesn't want to spend the kind of money that it looks like Arkansas is going to be spending. It doesn't want to spend as much as Kentucky will spend. It doesn't want to spend like that on basketball. And if to be competitive, I think they're going to have to. Yeah, I thought it was me. Oh,
Yeah, I'm back.
did you hear me, or we did not hear you if you've talked in the last
No, I haven't
minute?
talked. You were in the middle of whatever you were saying.
Okay. Hold on. I'm going to start closing windows. I don't pretend to know what's happening, but I'm going to assume that there's a chance that it's me. So give me 2 seconds here.
Yeah, I think it was me, but I don't know.
You froze on me at like the very start today. But I don't know what that was. Okay. All right.
Yes. Yeah, testing 1 2 3 1 2 3 testing.
Okay, hold on. Let me close down a few more things here real quick. Okay. All right. I think I don't know if you heard me, Barry, but I was basically saying something like I think this means that OU is going to have to spend more money on basketball than it would like to spend to be any good. I don't know if you heard that. Right. I don't know if you want to say anything to that, but that's where I left off.
I can follow up that, and then I can take us into the next question, whatever that is.
Yeah. What does this mean for coaching contracts? Yeah. I think was the next one. Yeah. Okay. All right, Jacquelyn, I think we're ready. I'll just let you jump in, Barry.
Okay.
I think you can go whenever, Barry.
Okay. I think you're right, Jacko. I think OU doesn't want to spend that money. I don't think it has that money. I think that's one of the problems is NIL basketball revenue has not been money has not been readily available compared to some of their contemporaries in the Big 12 or the SEC. So, yeah, I think OU's joined the fast lane in basketball and is not sure what to do about it. And that was true before moving to the SEC. I don't think this Calipari thing helps at all in terms of the Sooners. You know, when you look at the coaching contracts, that's going to be the next thing coming for the Sooners, whether Porter Moser stays, 1 month or 10 years. When you look at Calipari's contract, he would have been fired at Kentucky, I think, 3 weeks ago, if not for that $33 million buyout. Kentucky wanted him gone, but Kentucky couldn't afford the buyout. This is not Texas A&M's oil money where they just write, checks to cover any kind of a bad decision they made. So I think in some ways this was a get-out-of-jail-free card for Kentucky. And the coaching contracts, this goes with Oklahoma State, hiring Steve Lutz, all the coaching changes we've seen, it just schools continue to play the game of giving out these outrageous contracts with these incredible buyouts, even though they have the negotiating power on the college campus. There are more good coaches than there are good jobs. And if you got one of the good jobs and a guy doesn't want to be there, if he doesn't want the job, go to the next guy. But Kentucky had the $33 million, gets the bailout, so everything's going to be okay. He leaves at zero. He doesn't have to. The one-sidedness of this is crazy. If Cal gets fired, you owe him $33 million. If he leaves for Arkansas, he owes you nothing.
Right.
So it's just a one-sided contract deal, and it makes no sense, and it is a big mess in college basketball and football.
But I can understand the one-sided or the out-of-whack contracts in college football to a degree because it is such a money driver. Now, Kentucky, different deal. Obviously a school that does fit in that very, very small upper crust of blue bloods in college basketball. But still, I don't get why the contracts for college basketball coaches at any place not named Duke, Kansas, or Kentucky, maybe a couple others, maybe you throw in a few others in that list. But other than that, why are athletic directors inclined to do such one-sided contracts for a college basketball coach? I don't get it, Barry. If you get your guy and you feel like he's the coach for your football team, okay, maybe you do a contract that favors him to keep him happy. But I don't get the college basketball thing. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. To my knowledge, we haven't heard contract terms for Steve Lutz at Oklahoma State, but I assume it's going to be pretty favored to him, not because he isn't a nice guy or isn't a potentially good coach for Oklahoma State. All of those things could be true. I just don't understand the lopsidedness of these contracts. Would somebody explain that to me, please?
Well, they all say it's market driven, but I think that's a crutch. I don't think they realize the value that they have. Whether you're Arkansas, whether you're Kentucky, whether you're Oklahoma, whether you're Oklahoma State. Like I said, these are precious jobs in the power structure. They pay incredibly well. Your profile is massive. Your future earnings is potentially great. Good coaches will come after those jobs. And if some guy doesn't want it because he wants to stick it to you on the buyout, go to the next guy. So far, people don't do that. They fall back on this market thing. I think somebody besides the agents can establish the market, I guess is what I'm saying. Let's talk real quick, Jacko, about the next coach at Kentucky. Kentucky, Kansas, Carolina, Duke, Connecticut, I guess now. That's about as high profile of a job as you're going to find in college basketball. Yeah. Vegas has set some odds. Let me throw some names at you. You tell me, yay or nay, you think he would consider Kentucky. The betting favorite, Scott Drew of Baylor. Would he go to Lexington?
Man, I think so. I think he would definitely be interested. He's got a great job at Baylor. I think he's a pretty made man at Baylor. So you're leaving somewhere where you're established for somewhere where they want you to win right away. But Scott Drew's really good. So I could see that happening. Yes.
I'm going to say no, Scott Drew wouldn't consider it. He seems like a sane person. He's built a great thing at Baylor. Baylor is a place that's had a bunch of crazy coaches. Scott Drew is not crazy. He's beloved there. He's a made man. He's won a national title there since Kentucky has. I wouldn't go if I was him. I don't think he would. Nate Oates was second on the list. Nate now has taken his name out, contract extension at Alabama, so I guess he's not going. So next in line, Richard Pitino, not Rick Pitino, Richard Pitino, son of Rick, the former Louisville coach, the former Kentucky coach. Now at New Mexico, got New Mexico in the NCAA tournament. Would Richard Pitino renew the Pitino dynasty at Lexington?
I would say yes. Now, I don't know how crazy he is. I can't speak to that. I haven't seen him in action quite as much as Scott Drew, Nate Oates, those sorts of things. But that would be a massive step up. Now, the question becomes how much of his dad's experience at Kentucky, wins him over or sends him away. I don't know which way he would lean on that, obviously. So I think as far as, the ladder of coaching, he goes. But I think that's an interesting one because of the family history and how that plays into his decision. And I don't pretend to know what he would decide on that regard.
Yeah, I unless there's personal grudges, Rick Pitino, not particularly popular when he ended up at Louisville with Kentucky fans. Yeah. Unless there's a grudge there, I think Richard Pitino would go. Here's one near and dear to our heart, Billy Donovan, who was, of course, Rick Pitino's player at Providence, assistant coach at Kentucky, big-time winner at Florida, came to coach the Thunder, now with the Chicago Bulls. Not going great there. Would Billy Donovan leave the Bulls to go coach Kentucky?
I'm going to say no. I just, there were times when Donovan was here in Oklahoma City that college jobs would come open. I think Florida came open at one point. I don't know. I just didn't get much of a feeling like he wanted to go back into college coaching. And let's be honest, there were a lot of things that he had to do as a head coach when he was at Florida. There's a lot more things he has to deal with if he goes back to the college game now. So I got the feeling like, yes, it might not be going well in Chicago right now, but I just don't know if Billy Donovan wants to deal with all of the growing hassles that a coach has to deal with in the college game. So I would say no to Billy Donovan.
I think I'm going to say yes for this reason. You're right. He hated college basketball, the recruiting game, all that stuff. But that's changed. You don't recruit players anymore. You sign players. You negotiate with players. He's used to that in recent years with the Thunder, with the Bulls. He didn't do the negotiation. I don't think he's going to have to do it at Kentucky. I think you can go buy players. I don't mean that in a negative sense. In the new traditional way of business in college basketball, you buy your players. I think that's perfect for Billy Donovan at Kentucky. I think he might go back to Lexington. Mark Pope, coach at Brigham Young, former Kentucky player. Would Mark Pope go to Kentucky?
I would assume yes. He knows the crazy, as long as he just didn't get totally turned off by it. But Kentucky is one of those places that it's sort of like Michigan, hire your own sort of thing. And that's not 100% of the time, but I could see where Kentucky people would be fired up about a former Wildcat taking over. We saw Hubert Davis take over at North Carolina, a Tar Heel. We saw John Shire take over at Duke, a former Blue Devil. You've kind of got this track record now of former players coming back to coach their alma mater. So I don't know if he's the right guy, but I think that might be something Kentucky would think about.
Yeah, I think the pull of your alma mater is a real thing. I think he would go. Kelvin Sampson at Houston. Kelvin is 70 or 69 now. So would Houston want to take a flyer on Kelvin?
I'm going to say no. Not that they might not want Kelvin Sampson and the success that he's had, but I don't think Kelvin would leave. I think he's got a good situation at Houston. He's beloved there. He's got the team around him, and not just players, but coaches, assistants, his family, really ingrained in what they're doing there. I don't know how Kentucky would look at that if he just tried to pick that group up and take it to Lexington. I don't know if they'd be as enamored of that as they are at Houston. Obviously, it's working great, but I don't know. I don't think Kelvin's moving. I think he's sticking with Houston.
Yeah, I don't think he'd go. He tried it once, OU to Indiana. I don't think he wants to make that kind of jump, Houston to Kentucky. I'd say no. Jamie Dixon at TCU, wonderful coach, won at Pitt, now winning at TCU. Would Jamie go to Kentucky?
I say yes. I say he absolutely would. You look at what Pitt basketball has been since he left. It's obvious he had a huge impact on that. And now TCU, while not to the level that Pitt was in its glory under him, definitely an improved program. And yeah, I think he would. Obviously neither Pitt nor TCU is nearly the same on the same level as Kentucky basketball. But yeah, I think Jamie Dixon would go.
Here's a dark horse candidate. Sean Miller at Xavier, went to Arizona, won big, got himself in trouble with the NCAA, went back to Xavier. Wonderful coach. Would he go to Kentucky?
I would assume so. I mean, and the thing is that you've got obviously you've got coaches that have moved around a lot. Whether we're talking about Richard Pitino, Sean Miller, they've had some, whether it's them themselves or family experience at programs like this. So I think they are not opposed to that kind of thing. Now, Kentucky fans, Wildcat fans, they're a pretty unique breed. I mean, they're definitely on the higher end of cuckoo, but I think coaches like that have been around. They've seen it. They know what it looks like. And to say that they coach Kentucky, I think that's something that a Sean Miller would jump at. The chance to say, I was the coach of the Arizona Wildcats, now I'm the coach of the Kentucky Wildcats. I think he would say yes.
Chris Beard, Ole Miss. Would Chris, the defrocked coach from Texas,
100%.
The scoundrel who left Tech, would he go to Kentucky?
100%. No doubt about it. No doubt. And frankly, until Nate Oates got his extension at Alabama, I thought he was the leading candidate. I thought, what you said earlier about SEC pulling SEC, from one school to the other, it felt like a natural thing. Yeah, of course they're going to hire Nate Oates to be their coach. So if Chris Beard's it, I would not be the least bit surprised.
Forget Richard Pitino. How about Rick Pitino? Did they go get Rick Pitino from St. John's?
I think no, and I don't think either side is initiating that. That's my feeling. I don't know. What do you think, Barry?
I think Kentucky would say no, but I think Rick Pitino would crawl from New York to Lexington to go back to that job. All right, two more just for fun. Maybe not for fun. I think this guy'd be a serious candidate. How about Shaka Smart at Marquette?
That's a good one. All he's done is pretty much win everywhere he's been. Yeah. So would they hire him? I don't know, but would he go? I think so.
Yeah, they could do a lot worse than Shaka Smart. Texas should have never gotten rid of Shaka Smart. And finally, let's go to Bruce Pearl. Would Bruce Pearl leave Auburn and go to Kentucky? Bruce Pearl won big at Tennessee. He beat OU with Wisconsin, Milwaukee in the 06 NCAAs. Now he's winning big at Auburn. Would he go to Kentucky?
I sort of feel the same way about him that I feel about Nate Oates. Yes, I think he would. And I don't think anybody would bat an eye, even though, he's had issues, NCAA, things that are not exactly above board feeling. But now, like you said earlier, it's all part of the ecosystem. Now it's all okay. So yes, I think Bruce Pearl would absolutely go. I don't know. Would Kentucky consider him seriously?
I think they might. I think Kentucky wants to win, and he wins. All kinds of fun candidates out there, whether it's, these guys we're talking about, Brad Underwood from Illinois, Jerome Tang from K-State, TJ Otzelberger at Iowa State, Shaheen Holloway, now at Seton Hall. Lots of good candidates, but man, when Kentucky, what's funny, Jacko, is this. Kentucky firing their coach usually starts the ripple effect.
Yeah.
This was different. This comes the other way. Kentucky's on the back end of it. We're near the end of the hiring cycle. Kentucky looking for a basketball coach. Always interesting in college basketball.
Well, it's kind of like what happened with Nick Saban. We thought that the coaching carousel had stopped. Yep. Then he announces his retirement, and suddenly it's back on again. So what are the ripples caused by this? We know they're going to be out there. Now it's just a matter of waiting to see who moves to Kentucky and what those ripples are from there. That's all the time we've got this week. Remember to subscribe to our show. It really does help us. And if you like what you hear, please leave us a review. You can find our columns, videos, podcasts at selloutcrowd.com, as well as barrytramel.com and jenni-carlson.com. And if you want our content sent straight to your inbox, all you have to do is subscribe to our newsletter. It's free and it's easy. Just go to selloutcrowd.com and sign up today. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.